In this video, I'm going to show you how to enter a traffic pattern. I'm also going to show you how to fly a better traffic pattern, how to enter a pattern at a non-towered airport and at a towered airport. So what is a traffic pattern and what's its purpose? The purpose of the traffic pattern is to create a standardized route that every airplane should fly. And when used properly, it helps prevent the chance of two airplanes trying to occupy the same space simultaneously. And I think everybody knows what that means. So to start out, how to fly a better traffic pattern. The traffic pattern is just a rectangle over the ground. So where can we go to practice flying over a perfect rectangle over the ground? And luckily, a place like that does exist. It's the happiest place on earth, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Not Disney, it's here. So when we're flying a traffic pattern, we need to make a rectangle over the ground. And if there's no wind, then we would just fly downwind. We'd be parallel to the runway. Base and crosswind, we'd be perpendicular. But that's not usually ever the case. There's always wind, so we always need to correct for wind to fly a perfect rectangular path over the ground. And that's what this is going to help us practice. So right now we're heading south. The wind is out of the west, so that's off our right side. So we have to point our nose into the wind to correct for the wind pushing us to the left. So here's we make the first turn, the wind's going to be pushing us from behind. As it pushes us from behind, our ground speed's going to increase. Since we're going faster, to maintain the same turn radius, we would need to use a steeper bank. And in the traffic pattern, don't turn more than 30 degrees of bank. So now the wind is off our left side. When we roll out, we don't want to roll out parallel to the runway we're landing on. We want to turn the nose into the wind as we are here. The nose is pointing into the wind off to the left. And when we're flying the traffic pattern, we're not going to make a perfect rectangle just like we would over the top of this racetrack. But we do want to pay attention to what direction the wind's coming from and what it's going to do to us in the traffic pattern and make an attempt to make a perfect rectangle over the ground. And here's we enter turn 3. We're turning into a headwind. Our ground speed's going to be much slower. And you can see that it already is. So when we make the turn into the headwind, we want to use a shallower bank. And the same thing's going to be true as we approach turn 4 here and turn down the main straightaway. We're going to want to use a shallower bank. And as we roll out of the turn, we're not going to turn and be parallel to the straightaway, or in the airport's case, a runway. We're going to keep the nose pointed into the wind. So the nose will be off to the right when we're going down the straightaway. And this is a good procedure to practice. And back when I taught people how to fly 15, 20 years ago, there's actually a procedure called rectangular course. We would go up, find a 1 square mile area, and just fly around it and try to keep the same distance away from the road as we went around. This is doing the same thing, but this is a little bit easier and a little bit more fun flying over the racetrack just because you can. And the overall purpose of this exercise is to keep in mind which way the wind is coming from, and on each leg of the pattern, what the wind is going to be doing to you. And also in this video, I'm going to be using 2 different airplanes, the Savage Grravel and the CJ4 with the Working Title Mod. So here we have a sectional chart. We were just at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we're going to go up to Eagle Creek and into the traffic pattern there. And when I recorded this, the winds were out of the west at about 20 knots. And since we want to take off and land into the wind, we're going to be landing to the south on runway 21. When we're going to an airport, we need to know what direction we're coming from, so we know we're coming from the southeast. The next question, what direction is the traffic pattern, left or right? In this case, it's left. And we also know it's a left-hand pattern because it doesn't say. If it's a right-hand pattern, one place you'll see it on a sectional chart is here. Underneath the airport, you'll see, like in this example, RP9 means right pattern on runway 9. So the next thing we need to do is find the runway we're landing on and draw the traffic pattern. And there are 2 basic ways to enter the traffic pattern. A 45-degree entry from the downwind leg to join approximately midfield, or you can enter a midfield crosswind. And in both of these entries, you would join the downwind leg. And real quick, let's take a review of the names of each leg in the traffic pattern. After takeoff, we have the upwind leg. Next is the crosswind leg, then downwind, base, and final. I will do some of the communications on each leg to simulate that, but if you want more information on traffic patterns, where to look up, more information on airports, which direction the traffic pattern is, I do have an older video on traffic patterns that will explain that, and I will put a link to that in the description. Here's an aerial view of what a 45-degree entry looks like. And here's downwind. Base. And final. And if you didn't see that, I had the CJ4 flying the pattern from the drone view. If you're not full screen on a large screen, you may not see that. So here we are approaching Eagle Creek Airport. We just came from the speedway. We're entering the pattern on a 45-degree entry for the downwind. And in real life right now, your head would be looking to the left and in front of you, pretty much all directions, but you want to be watching for aircraft that are already on the downwind leg that were maybe in the pattern. And as far as altitudes to fly in the pattern, normally the traffic pattern is 1,000 feet above ground level. The elevation here is approximately 800 feet. I've just rounded to make it easy, so we're flying at 1,800 feet. Large or turbine-powered aircraft would be flying the traffic pattern at 1,500 feet above ground level, which would be 2,300 feet in this case, MSL. So in this position, you'd make a radio call, Eagle Creek traffic, whatever your airplane is downwind, runway 21. And going back to the altitude, we would hold the traffic pattern altitude until we're abeam the numbers or abeam the touchdown point. So also in this situation, we said earlier the winds are out of the west. As we did flying around the speedway, we always pointed our nose into the wind, and turning into the wind, we're going to have a slower ground speed so we can make a shallower bank. So as we turn into the wind to the west, we're going to have a shallower bank, so maybe 15 to 20 degrees of bank. And you can see this is slightly shallower. And in this position on the common traffic advisory frequency, which can be found on the sectional chart, you'd say Eagle Creek traffic, Savage Grravel, base, runway 21. I just want to throw out real quick, this is the Savage Grravel. If you guys don't have this one, I suggest downloading it. It is free. And also check out the boarding area. I'll put a link in the description. Those guys did a podcast with the creator of this airplane, and they've also done a podcast with me a few weeks ago. And as we roll out on final, we point our nose into the wind slightly, and you can see even though we've done that, it's still pushing the airplane to the left. We need a little bit more correction to the right. And in this position, the radio call would be Eagle Creek traffic, Savage Grravel, final, runway 21. And I wasn't going to talk about it, but because this airplane's going so slow right now, I have time. We have the PAPIs on the left side of the runway, precision approach path indicators. And these are set up to give us a 3-degree glide path. They do vary from airport to airport. It just depends. Most of the time they are 3 degrees, but we have red over white. And that means we're on that 3-degree glide path. If you had too white, it means you're too high. If you had all red, that means you're too low. And as we get closer to the runway, we got to remember to put a wing down into the wind. Wind is off the right, so right wing down, left rudder to make the airplane land parallel to the center line of the runway. And if you want more information on crosswind landings, believe it or not, I have a video for that too. So we just saw the procedure for entering a pattern on a 45-degree entry. But what if we're not coming from the direction where we can enter directly on a 45? What if we're coming from the opposite side of the airport? Well, we're going to go over that too. So in this case, we're coming in from the northwest. So in this example, the recommended entry is to fly over the field at a minimum of 500 feet above the traffic pattern altitude. So if we fly over the traffic pattern altitude by 500 feet, that would put us at 2,300 feet. Well, we said earlier, jets fly the traffic pattern at 1,500 feet if they're in the pattern. So we want to go 500 feet above that. We would want to go 1,000 feet above pattern altitude, which is why we're at 2,800 feet. And we would fly this heading, we would fly out past the traffic pattern by about 2 miles, and then make a right turn back around and enter the 45-degree entry. And if you're curious, you can see right there off our left side is Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's where we came in from on the last example. So in this position, as we make our turn to the right around enter on the 45, we would be looking out for aircraft on the crosswind and downwind leg. If there are airplanes there, we would want to go out farther and give them the right of way. Also in this situation, it's advisable to descend to pattern altitude and then make the right hand turn. You can see that I started the right hand turn and I'm still descending. But I just wanted to point that out because I was descending while I was doing this. I wanted to let everybody know the proper way to do it. And as you can see, the airport in front of us, or specifically the runway in front of us, and we are on a 45-degree entry for the downwind leg. And we've seen this part, so we're going to skip to the next type of entry. So here we are, we're in the same position that we were when we flew over the airport, 2,000 feet above ground level, and made the right teardrop to a 45-degree entry. And that method is used when the traffic pattern is very busy. But let's say we're out flying, it's not busy. Why do we need to go all the way out and make that 45-degree entry? We don't. It's also acceptable to fly midfield crosswind, as we're doing right now, over the center of the airport, and then make a left turn to the downwind leg. You'll also notice this one, we're at 1,800 feet. We're at pattern altitude. When you're entering the pattern from midfield crosswind and making the left turn to go downwind in this situation, you enter at pattern altitude. You only go higher when you're going to fly over to the pattern and enter on that 45 that we did in the last example. So now that we've covered the ways to get into the traffic pattern at a non-towered airport, what about a towered airport? So now we're going to take off from Eagle Creek Airport and we're going to fly to Indianapolis International. Going to a towered airport, we're not going to enter the traffic pattern the way we would at a non-towered airport unless they tell us to. At a towered airport, air traffic control might tell you to enter a left or right downwind for the runway, or they might tell you to enter a right base for a particular runway. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to say Indianapolis Tower has told us to enter a 3-mile right base for runway 23 right. And with the CJ4 Working Title Mod, we can do that. Under the Depart Arrive page, hit Next, go past all the approaches. After all the approaches, you'll see runways. We're going to select runway 23 right. And on this page, we can make a waypoint on the extended center line of the runway. We said we're going to enter a 3-mile right base. So instead of 5, we want that to say 3. We can also type any distance we want. We can do 3.8, you can do 10.2, you can do whatever. But we could also just type 3 without the 0.0 and put that in, and it will fill in 3.0 like that. And now that we've hit execute, we can go to the legs page and we can set it up to go directly to that point. We just highlight RX23 right. That's the extended center line of 23 right. It is 3 miles. We can see it there. Select it. It goes into the scratch pad and then put it up where you see the pink and you see RX23 right. Hit execute. And now we can look up at the MFD and see what that looks like. Now we can see the extended center line that we made for 23 right at that 3-mile point. And you can see here, this is what the rest of the traffic pattern would look like. And we said earlier, we're going to enter on a 3-mile right base. So we would want to enter the traffic pattern from over here and fly a 90-degree angle to the final approach course. So now we know what that's supposed to look like. Let's go fly it and see what it actually looks like. So you can see here, we're on a right base for runway 23 right. Actually, in this example, I did not have the 3-mile fix put in there. This is actually the 5, but you get the idea. However, it is possible ATC could give you a different altitude to fly for traffic pattern altitude. And ATC may also say, Extend your downwind, I'll call base. That means continue flying downwind. They will tell you when to turn base. But in this example, we set it up saying we were going to enter the pattern on a 3-mile right base. So we did that. We're making the turn on to final now. And we can see that's approximately 3 miles. And in this position, we would have the airplane set up to land. The next things we would want to hear from the tower would be Tango Charlie Papa Delta 1, clear to land, runway 23 right. So that's pretty much it. That's the basics of traffic patterns at towered and non-towered airports. Also, I'll put in the description the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. It has more information about traffic patterns and anything with aviation. And that is an FAA publication. It has lots of basic and some more in-depth information from aircraft systems to weather, airport operations, and so on. Also, be sure to check out the podcast by the boarding area guys that did the interview with the creator of the Savage Grravel. And also, I'm on there as well in a podcast. And Mac and Chris are both pilots, and they're also both flight simulator enthusiasts. And don't forget to check out my basic traffic pattern video. So that's it. Until next time, I do have a lot more videos in the works. I've had some requests from people in the past and ideas. I am working on those. I'm actually working on about 3 different videos right now. It's just going to take me a little bit of time to get them out. So stay tuned for more. And as always, thank you for watching. If you have questions, you can ask questions in the comments. If you want to ask more direct questions that you don't want the whole world to see, I do have my email address on the About page of my YouTube channel. You can go there, send me a direct email, and I will answer you. So if you have any questions, comments about aviation, I've had people email me questions about getting into aviation, anything like that, feel free to ask away. I'll be more than happy to help.